The recording is on. We're going to quickly get started now. So, welcome. My name is Bonaventure. For those who are new here, those who we haven't interacted before, we're going to be looking at a few things on programming, what it's all about, what you can be able to do with it, build with it, everything, right? And to just help us understand what programming is in general, we're going to do a number of exercises as we go through. I'll be asking questions. Do answer the questions. You can answer them on the chat there. We'll be able to interact quickly. Those who are joining online on TikTok as well, any questions you want to ask, just ask them there. I want to be able to answer them directly, but I'll just try as much as I can to read. Again, I probably won't have the time to just go through everything, but we'll see. So first things first is you don't need any prior experience for this talk that we're going to be having. Anyone, if you're starting from zero, moving up, you're all good. The goal is for you to walk away with a feeling of confidence in the things that we're going to be looking at. But I want you to feel confident on four main things. And the first thing is to make sure that you have a clear definition of what programming actually is. I also want you to have a brief understanding of where it came from. I want you to I want you to just listen to some of the examples they're going to be having, and even you offer some examples on what you can build with programming. And last but not least, I want us to make sure that we have a clear and actionable plan on how to get started in programming today. I made a video about a month ago where I was telling everyone that the only thing that you need for you to do, or rather for you to succeed in programming, is consistency. Okay, not really the only thing, but one of the main things that you need is consistency over the next few months. Anyone who started in June, at the beginning of June, by December 31st will be so far ahead if that person was consistent. Anyone who is also starting even today, August moving forward, by end of December, you're going to start noticing changes in the kind of things you're able to build, the kind of progress you'd have made. Going all the way to next year, January, February, you'll be pretty comfortable and confident in the things that you're going to do. So you need to get started anytime anytime, honestly. Start today. There's no need to just wait it out and start saying I'm going to start on Monday, I'll start on Tuesday. Today is the best day for you to get started. So I want us to just look at a few things that we're going to look at. The main thing that I want you to do is just ask the questions and everything, but to fully just help us make sense of everything that we're going to be looking at, and us to first understand my sort of philosophy when it comes to how to go about programming. The philosophy is just write a code every day. There's no way around it. You have to write code every day, no matter. Let me just let a few people in. Awesome. No matter what you do, you need to write code every day. It doesn't matter how busy you are. No one actually cares how busy you are. I don't. Your friends don't. No one, honestly. Your competitor that doesn't. Know that at every extra hour that you put into programming, there's someone else somewhere who's putting 3 4 hours, and this is the same person you're going to be competing against when it comes to getting jobs and everything else. So whatever you do, make sure that you start writing code today and write code every day. Whenever the main thing you need to just always make sure is you have a clear plan, a clear action plan, so that you can be able to monitor your progression. You can use that clear action plan to see how far ahead you're going, right? So if you're able to monitor everything that you're doing, let's say in a period of a month, then you have enough data. By the end of the month, you have enough data to help you understand some of the things you need to change up in terms of how you approach your learning. You're able to see the kind of projects that can build within a month and how better you're getting every time. So whatever you're doing, you need to make sure that you're tracking everything that you do, right? It's very simple to track these things. Just take some notes. One of the major issues I have with a lot of people is how they learn to code and how to just learn anything. People are used to reading things online without taking notes, and the same thing or the same mentality is what everyone is bringing to how they learn programming. Right? Whenever you're learning, you always have to take down some notes. You always have to take down some notes so that there's the whole idea. Again, I want to go into the whole story about it. You can find it online, but there's this concept that whenever you're learning anything and you're taking down some notes, it kind of reinforces your understanding even further, as opposed to someone who is not taking notes and just reading something as if it's like a notebook, another storybook they're trying to read, right? So if you're watching a video on YouTube, do not watch that video as if you're watching a movie. You need to be taking down some notes. You need to be coding along with the person if you're watching a tutorial on coding. So this is one thing that you always have to do, but make sure that you write code every day. Before we go any further, you guys know about me, most of you I believe, but I'm a software engineer and a data scientist. I've been doing software engineering a lot more than data science. I started professionally practicing data science about a year and a half ago, but I've been a software engineer for a lot longer than that. And I'm also a programming lecturer. My hobby is just simple. I love writing code. My life revolves around coding, everything. My conversations with my friends, even my parents, involve coding. So I that can tell you how much I love coding. It's just something that helps tick my, my brain. It's something that I don't know. I don't know anything about. I don't know life outside coding. Let me put it that way. That kind of obsession. I'm not sure. I'm not like the Mr. Beast level sort of obsession, but I just love coding and I love building stuff every day, any day, in everything that I'm doing. Now, let's get to the main thing that I want us to talk about today, which is programming. Why do you need to learn code, and what is even coding, or what is even programming in general? I want you to think of programming as talking to computers, right? Right now, most people only know how to interact with a computer, and that is very different from talking to their computer, right? So, clicking around, using social media, installing applications, you're only interacting with a computer at that point. But I believe that learning to talk to a computer is going to give you a bit of an edge in the things that you do. It even opens up your mind to this new universe, or rather, this sort of different world from what you are typically used to. And the programming, there's the word program, right? A program is just a step by step process or step by step instructions that tell a computer what to do, right? You're the one telling the computer what to do. This is why the people who've already started coding and have some experience will tell you that any mistakes that you get, any errors that you get, it's not the computer. Your program does not have an issue. You're the one who has an issue. Any error that is made, you're the one who made that error, because your program will only do what you tell it to do. It won't go rogue unless you're building an AI that is going rogue at some point, right? But for the most people, general like general and normal people, any mistake that you make to your code, that is your mistake. It's not the program's mistake. So a program is a step-by-step sets of instructions that you tell a computer and tell it what to do. I want you to think of it as a recipe, right? You have a cookbook and you're using that cookbook to just write a number of things on it, right? You have a recipe on how to, let's say, bake a cake, right? But I want you to know that at its core, programming is just giving computers step by step instructions. And think of it as a very, very specific conversation, right? Hence why I said your program is going to do exactly what you tell it to do. So this is a very, very specific conversation. A great analogy you can use is of a recipe. We've talked about it being, think of a program as a recipe in a cookbook, right? So the recipe that you have is a set of instructions on how to prepare something, right? So let's say you want to bake a cake. You're going to preheat your oven, then you'll go ahead and mix the dry ingredients that you have. You're going to follow those steps precisely to the point where you are able to get the cake that you want. Any mistake that is made on the cake, if it doesn't come out okay, if it gets burnt, if there's an imbalance in the ingredients, that you are the one who made that mistake. The cake did not make any mistake. So hence you get the point of, if your program has an issue, you're the one who has an issue, not the program, and you need to find a way to fix that issue. And the one thing I love about programming is that you're always going to fall into that trap. You're always going to find yourself in a case whereby you're falling short of what is expected or what your program expects. And that is why there's a lot of growth in programming. If you find someone who has been doing it consistently for at least 6 months and they've fallen in love with it, they've fallen in, it's sort of this, it's like this toxic relationship with programming, because you're going to be demoralized so many times. You're going to feel like giving up every time, but you're still going ahead and doing it, right? So it's some sort of like toxic relationship, but it is highly rewarding, in my opinion. So a program is just the same. You're going to give your computer the right instructions. It's going to give you the output in the right order, and it is going to perform the task that you want it to do. But I want us to quickly touch on these three things, right? I want us to quickly touch on the source code, compiler or interpreter, and runtime. These are some of the three main sort of topics that you're going to, not topics, but keywords that you're going to interact with a lot or hear a lot in programming. So these three terms, like source code, think of source code as the recipe itself, right? You have the recipe for baking a cake. So a recipe is that, rather the source code is that recipe that you're using to bake a cake. They are just the major raw instructions that you write. Then when you talk about a compiler or an interpreter, a compiler or interpreter is the, think of it as the translator, right? It turns the recipe that you have into the language that the computer is going to understand. Remember, the computer does not understand the natural language that we talk, right? Even when you talk to an AI, these AI systems, they do not understand the raw natural language that you use, the English that you use, the Swahili, or any of that. It has to interpret it down to the language that it understands, and it works in binary, so it converts it to zeros and ones. That is the language of the computer. So a compiler interpreter is going to translate the code or the recipe that you have into something that the computer is going to understand. Then the third key term is the runtime, right? Think of runtime as the kitchen. Right? We talked about baking a cake, right? The kitchen where you're baking your cake is what we refer to as runtime. It is where your recipe is being cooked. So that is where your program actually runs and performs all of its actions. Right? You're going to run into like what you refer to as runtime errors and all those things. That is like a common thing. That's why it's a major term to always understand. We're going to talk about why this is super important, rather why programming is super important a lot later on. But I want you to think of any instruction that you've made before, right? Just think of it right now, like any instruction that you'd give a friend, right? If you want to tell a friend how to tie their shoe, how to, I don't know, how to boil some water, I found a video on YouTube that has millions and millions of views, and the video was just telling people how to boil water, right? But I want you to think of that. What is the step-by-step instruction you'd give your friend to help them boil water? But these steps have to be very, very precise. It's not just something that is, think of it even when you're giving instructions, not directions for someone to get to a certain place. That is what you refer to as a recipe. Right. Again, just you can be typing it in the chat there. Any recipe that you can think of, just something simple that you've been doing, and we'll see how, rather the kind of instructions that you usually give. Whenever you're doing programming, there's the first program you're always told to write is hello world, right? It's just a statement that you say print hello world. I'm going to just let me see if I can type it in here. Where is it? Okay, let me get the text box for this. So you'll write, for example, in Python. In Python, we have print. Print is the instruction that you're giving. Like you said, you're giving a program an instruction, or rather your computer an instruction of what to do. Right. So print is an instruction in Python, and you're telling your program to print something. Then you'll specify what you want it to print. In this case, the first program you usually write is just hello world, something like that. Then you have print hello world. This is a fast program you're giving your computer. So print is the instruction, hello world is what you want it to do. I do hope this makes sense. But when it comes to programming, you're going to interact with a lot of the syntax later on. The thing about programming is a lot of people focus on the syntax too much that they forget to understand under the hood what they're actually doing. And that is something that you need to just make sure that you are fully aware of as you start learning programming, if you haven't, or if you're already learning, just see how you're doing that. Yeah. Someone is asking, are you sharing your screen somewhere? Yeah, we have a meet that everyone is joining, so I'm sorry that you're not able to see it. I probably need to get some streaming software so that I can start and set up, so I can start sort of fully sharing things online. So we've talked about learning to code and why it is important for you to learn to code. And the next thing that I want us to talk about after this, okay, good. The next thing I want us to talk about apart from learning to code is about the history of programming in general. Programming has a rich history. It started way, way back. You can go and Google a lot about the history of how programming started and everything else. But just to give you a quick timeline and what happened within that timeline, in the 1940s up to 1950s, we introduced to machine code. So the way machine code works is you just have massive, massive computers, like computers that could fill entire rooms, and you just have sort of like physical punch cards that you just type on. You'll probably see a video, or not a video, but an image of something like that online. So you just had to punch holes into those, like a pieces of paper and everything. Then you'll be able to see what your program is doing. It's something you're going to just find somewhere. And I talked about the idea of computers earlier on with Alan Turing, and how he thought of what an idea of a computer would be and how a computer would look like. You can just go check that out as well. But in the 1940s is where programming in general started to become a lot, or rather to be used, but it was mostly in research institutions and in universities all around the world, not around the world, but mostly in America and in Europe. Then it moves us to the 1950s and 60s, around there. This is when we had the first sort of, in quotes, high level programming languages. So we had things like, or other languages like Fortran. And the reason we refer to this as high level at the time, of course, they're still high level really, but they used words and mathematical symbols that we could understand, right? But instead, like I mentioned, in the 40s and the 50s, it was mainly just you're punching holes into something, into like a piece of paper to write a program. But when you get to the 50s and 60s, this is where Fortran, you're using words and some mathematical symbols and formulas to write a specific program. So that was a huge major step, in that not everyone, or rather at least a lot more people, could be able to understand what programming is. Then we move over to the 70s and the 80s as well. This is where C programming was born. You'll hear anyone who has done a computer course in university. C programming is usually the first language you get introduced to. And C programming, now the idea, or rather C programming, came up in the 70s there. So this is where the idea of what we refer to as structured programming came about. And this is just the era where personal computers, right? You'll hear a lot of the, rather you'll see lots of the tech leaders nowadays, like the older guys, they started doing programming in the 70s and the 80s, right? So this is because during this time is when the personal computers were a bit more available at their homes. Then the programming languages were a bit more high level at this time. So anyone could be able to understand kids and all that. Then you move on to the 1990s. You can read the entire history of what happened in the 1990s with the dot-com boom. This is when the companies like Google, all of these major like tech billionaires were made during this time. So the dot-com boom is where the web basically exploded. And during this time, the languages that were being used to build the internet at this time, so you see the rise of languages like Java, languages like C++, languages like JavaScript. These are the languages that powered the internet starting in the 90s and the early 2000s. So in the early 2000s, of course, the dot-com bubble had already burst. But during this time is when companies like Meta were sort of like started growing and were built during this time. Google started to be a bit more famous, or rather more popular, and many of these other companies or other tools that we use up to this date. Then from there, you move over to now the 2010s and up to today generally. During this time is when we have, especially Python has become quite famous during this period, mostly because it has a very simple syntax, and it is used in majorly like in data science and building the AI and the machine learning tools that we're using up to this date. But this is what happened in the 2010s and moving all the way up to now. We're moving to a point where we're starting to entertain the idea of now writing code using natural language with the AI tools that you're seeing, that everyone is using right now. But this is the general rough history of how programming came about. As you can see, it started quite a long time ago. But up to this date, again, we don't have that many programmers. There's still a deficit in the industry and all. So still a good time to get started if you haven't already. I'm going to pause here for a moment if you have any questions. Any questions, any comments from anyone? Even reactions would be good. I just want to make sure that everyone is listening. Faith, I don't know whether that means no questions or what exactly that means, but anyway. Awesome, awesome. Let's move forward. So we've talked about the history of programming, and up to where we are right now. Right now, we're starting to entertain the idea of programming in general. Before we start talking about the resources that you can use for you to learn programming, there's still a number of things that I'd like us to talk about. For example, why does it matter? Why do you need to learn programming today? There are the general questions that, or rather general answers you'll get from anyone on how programming and AI, the way we use it to automate boring tasks, right? For example, I want you to think of the computer that you have, right? Laptop, your phone that you have. You have so many files that and folders that are named different things. Sometimes you don't understand what all those are. Sometimes you just want to delete a number of things, right? And if you decide to delete something manually, it takes a lot of time. It's super boring. So you can be able to automate those processes with programming. You can just write a simple script that is going to go through all the files and folders in your computer and rename them if you wanted to, delete those files and folders if you wanted to as well. David, if you can't hear me, it is an issue on your side. Everyone else can hear me. So mostly, if you want to automate all these things, you can do that with programming. You can be able to, let's say you want data. I think an example I'd use is lots of companies usually struggle with getting leads, right? They try to get leads in terms of leads for, let's say, a business. Someone is running a business, they want to get leads that they can be able to try and convert. But to get those leads, you need to basically scrape the internet or some websites for you to find the information that you're going to use to get these leads. You can write a simple program that is going to scrape the web and get you the data, right? So you see, you're able to automate these processes. Instead of you going on LinkedIn and just manually looking for people, you can write a program to get these things for you. You can be looking for coupons, right? People usually want to buy stuff. You want to buy, let's say you want to buy some electronics, but you want cheaper options. Then you can write a program that is going to scrape somewhere on Reddit, somewhere online, to get you the specific items that you want, but the one that have like coupons with higher discounts. You can always do those kinds of things. I want you to also think of something like flights, right? When people are purchasing flights, I'm sure you guys probably understand. You can also just check some of this information online as well. But you'll hear people complaining that whenever they're trying to book a flight, let's say you want to book a flight from Nairobi to, let's say, Senegal, or Nairobi to Dubai, if you do it with in the normal browser that you usually use, it will probably be more expensive as opposed to if you set up a VPN, or if you search the same flights in an incognito browser and all those things, right? But there are also other flights that are way cheaper from less known airlines that you don't know about. But you don't know these things exist. So you can write a simple program that will just scrape the internet, find you the cheapest flights to a certain place. These are some of the things that programming can help you do, basically automating lots of things and making work a lot easier for you. But there's also the entire idea of solving real world problems, right? We have so many problems in the world that people just try to, or other people need solutions to. Think of healthcare, right? Healthcare has lots of issues that you can use programming to help solve. For example, you want to connect, you've had, there are lots of these applications that are coming up nowadays that connect people who, therapists and people who want to talk to someone, have stress, mental health issues and all that. You can be able to connect these two people. You can be able to connect those people with just normal general ideas, common ideas and all that. Think of an app like Discord was built for people to, gamers basically, to interact for them with the kind of with their fellow, like people they are playing games with and their fans and all that. And right now, Discord has grown into this big like community for everyone, other platform that everyone can be able to build a community in. So I need to think of all these problems. Yeah, let's not even think about the major problems that everyone has. Look at the community around you. Look at all your friends. What kinds of problems do they face that you can use programming to solve? I'll give you an example. At the moment, I'll share this when I get the time. But I got a question yesterday or the day before. I got a question from someone, and it's a common question I've been receiving from lots of people. And the question was, how do I get started in programming? But even more important, how do I know which specific field in programming to get started in? And because I received so many of these questions, sometimes I don't have time to answer all of them, and sometimes people just have very specific needs that we probably need a lot of time to sit down and figure out what someone is going to do next. And sometimes I also don't want to make the decision for someone, because you just need to find out exactly what you love doing. So to solve that challenge, I decided to build an application that asks you very specific questions on your general interests in life. Then at the end, it's quite a long report. It takes you about 15 to 20 minutes to be able to fill everything and provide all the feedback. But after that, we do an analysis of all the information that you've provided. Then we suggest to you which fields you would best fit in compared to the other fields, right? That is a problem I was facing, and the problems that a lot of people are facing. And I decided I'm going to build an application for this, right? The other application I shared a while back, a few days ago as well, is I built this application actually 2 years ago. That was in 2023. I built it actually in August of 2023, August 10th. I do remember the date because I bought the domain on that date. I had lots of my friends discussing about they want to go on trips, but they need to figure out the places they are going to, what activities are there. They need to know the prices or what their budgets could fit for them to have fun at that specific place. And I was like, I can be able to build something with this. At the time, I'd already started playing around with the OpenAI API and just using all these other AI APIs to build things. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to build a simple application. All you need to do is just punch in the budgets that you have, the place that you want to visit, and how many people you want to visit it with. With that information, it can be able to check the publicly available information, scrape a few things, and using AI to just make sense of everything, it can give you a list of activities that you can do at the specific place, the prices. Then it helps you just create a simple itinerary early on, right? It is a problem I saw people facing. It's a problem I decided to solve. A lot of these travel agencies, they do the same thing. I built this application again over 2 years ago. Actually 2 years ago, and I even forgot about it. I came to check the traffic on the website a few weeks ago and found out probably a week ago, I think, and found out that I already have more than 10,000 people who have used the application, and I'm closing in on about 1,000 monthly users. It's completely free. No one is, but it's solving a major problem that people are facing. So solving real world problems is one of the major things you can be able to use programming to do. It is a creative outlet. I'm generally a creative person, and I just love building stuff for fun. This is the best way that I found it to, right? So if you want to build games, if you want to build some interactive artworks using AI to just do like painting, you can do that. You can build chatbots if you want to. There are so many, even just career wise, the careers in tech are so many. If you just decide to do programming, you can be a software engineer, you can do data science, you can be like a DevOps person. There's so many of these careers. Again, check the video that I did on careers in tech from A to Z. Should be able to give you an idea of the careers that you can do here. But generally speaking, programming is a very powerful tool for you to do. And the general thing I always say is that you don't always have to build a career out of programming, right? If you don't want to build a career out of it, that is totally okay. But just know that this is a fundamental skill that you're going to need. Programming is like math. You fundamentally need to understand math for you to at least live a normal life like everyone else, for you to be able to count things. We're heading to a world where programming does the exact same thing as math, even with AI. So at this point, if you understand programming, you need to start doing it immediately. There's so many endless possibilities on the things you can do. You can be able to build a games, uh, yeah, you can be able to build like games, you can be able to build like fitness applications, you can be able to build some, let's say, data projects. Like I mentioned, businesses that have issues, right? Not For example, someone has a business. This is now one of the things you can do is in data science, in data analysis and all that. Lots of businesses still operate manually. They store the information in they write the information in like some sheets of paper or like in some books. But at the end of the day, you'll find that they have, maybe you'll find a business that has been operating in like for 5, 10 years, and they have all the data on what they've done, but it's all in paper. They don't understand the trends within the businesses. They don't understand the gaps that exist within those businesses. They don't understand what their best selling products is. There are all these tiny things, tiny bits and sets of data that you need to understand for you to run a successful business. But if you learn programming, you can do data science and you can do data analysis and all that. For you to store this information somewhere there, make sense out of it with dashboards and some visualizations, for you to understand what is our best performing year, what are our profits, what are our margins on specific products, what do we need to optimize on, is there a product that we're losing money on that we need to get rid of, is there a problem with something else. You are able to only make sense of this data if you can be able to see all of this data somewhere visually. You can't do that by just looking at pieces of paper. Then you can even go ahead to start building machine learning models that are going to help you understand, rather even do predictions. Like you want to project what your sales are going to be for the next, let's say, for the next 1 year, the next 6 months. You're able to do that by doing these models. I mean, that is how companies, the last week, major AI companies, like the top AI companies that are listed in the New York Stock Exchange, were giving their earnings reports and then giving projections of what is going to happen in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. They do that because they have, rather, they don't make up those numbers. They've built models, they understand their data, they understand everything, and they've built machine learning models that give them those projections. Those are not just numbers they throw around. Think of even local companies or banks like Equity. Whenever they're giving their earnings call, they tell you what they foresee is going to happen over the next few months or few years. They do that because they have the data that supports those things and claims they're talking about. So generally, these are some of the reasons why programming is very, very important and why you should get started doing programming. Now, how do you get started? I think that is probably the major thing you've been waiting for me to talk about. To get started in programming is pretty simple. The main thing you need to do is, of course, make sure that you have a laptop. If you're using your phone, I recommend you find ways for you to get a laptop that you can use. The best laptop that can get you started, just get a simple laptop. It doesn't have to be expensive. Okay, expensive is relative. I do understand that, but get a laptop that is about at least 12 GB of RAM. 16 would be good, but at least 12 GB of RAM. What else? The ROM doesn't really matter, but anything that is 12 GB of RAM should be able to support almost everything that you're going to be doing as you start learning programming. Get a HP, a Lenovo, but just get a really nice computer that is going to even encourage you to, type on it and all those things. But all you need is you need a laptop. You can also even get a desktop, by the way. You should be able to do fine. You can't work with it anywhere, but you can still use it in your house. Once you have your devices set up, then you need to start picking the first, for example, programming languages that you do. What I do recommend is, before you pick a programming language for you to do, before you pick a programming language, you can start by understanding what you're getting into. So you understand what you're getting into, for example, by joining a session like today. Thank you. There's someone who has mentioned something. I mentioned, when you're looking for a computer or a laptop, make sure that it is at least Core i5. Core i7 would be good, but at least a Core i5 is really awesome. So thank you for that. I'd forgotten to mention that. So you need to understand what you're getting into. You do that by, of course, joining sessions like this. But the other thing that you can do is, I always recommend this to anyone: join the CS50 course by Harvard. Let me remove this text box here. Yeah, so the CS50 course by Harvard. This is a course that gives you an introduction into computer science, into problem solving and algorithmic thinking, which is a major skill, of course, you're going to learn in programming, but you still need to get an idea of what you're getting into. And CS50 course by Harvard is a good day for you to get into that. It is pretty lengthy. They have videos on YouTube. They also have the CS50 website. You can also go there and read the notes, do the challenges they have there. But I always recommend this as the first step for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're going to do cybersecurity, software engineering, data science, any of those. Start with this one. It gives you all the fundamentals that you need to understand. After you're done with this, especially even for those people who are not very sure about what they're going to do, this is a good way to get started. Then you need to pick a programming language, right? Now, there are two major mainstream programming languages that a lot of people use, and that is JavaScript and Python. You need to pick one of the two, right? So if you decide to pick JavaScript, we use JavaScript mainly for building web applications and the front-end facing parts of our applications, even building the backend as well. But JavaScript is a language that you can start with, right? Then you can also pick up Python. So you need to pick either of the two again. Java, rather Python, has a very simple syntax. It's almost close to natural language. It's basically English. That's the good thing about Python. That's why most people, we always say it is a language for anyone to get started in. So pick Python. It has a very simple syntax. It reads almost like English. It will get you started well. And the JavaScript that I've mentioned as well, it runs well on the browser. That's a good thing about it. It gives you instant feedback on what you need to do, right? With Python, you have to, of course, set up a few things on your machine. But the JavaScript, you can just write it, view everything on the browser. But what I always recommend for JavaScript is focus on understanding the core language before you start, being on the browser and writing with HTML, CSS, and all that. You need to just focus on the core language the same way you'd learn Python. What does the language do? What kind of cool programs I can build with JavaScript that are not, web projects and all that. But pick a language, right? So get your laptop or environment ready, then do CS50 to just get you into the idea of computer science and all that. Then go ahead and pick a programming language. Once you've picked a programming language, you need to set up your coding environment, right? To set up your coding environment, you usually have two options, right? You can set up an environment locally on your machine, or you can go ahead and set up the environment on online. You don't have to set up an environment online, but locally you install text editors like VS Code. Again, I'd recommend VS Code or Visual Studio Code in full. It's beginner friendly. You just clicking and dragging and dropping a few things around. It will help you get started and set up a few things that you want. But if you struggle, or you're going to struggle with setting up everything locally, I still do have set up videos on my YouTube. You can go check them out. But the other thing you can do is use online editors. We have free online editors you can use. There's like Replit, there's Google Colab. Those you don't need to set up an environment, you don't need to download anything, but you do need to have internet access, of course. But they'll help you just write code online simply to understand what you're trying to do there. Then the third step after that is, of course, you need to write your first program. Right now we've written this program here, which is print Python. Okay, yeah, this one, print hello world. So that is write your first program, understand what it is. Then you start the path to learning programming. Once you've picked a language, is pretty easy, by the way. Once you've printed hello world, then from there you start learning a number of things. You start learning what is, let's say you start learning about how to work with data, with variables and all that. You start looking at how to write the basic logic in the programs that you're writing. For example, you start writing simple programs like write a simple program that is going to check for an even number, or rather check if a number is even or not. Those are the simple programs you start writing. Then you build up these things as you move forward. As you're just growing, you keep on building these things. Right? So you just start from scratch, then you're going to see the paths. Again, I recommend one thing I haven't mentioned on the resources. There's, of course, all these others. On my YouTube channel, which, of course, I do recommend this for everyone. It's okay, by the way, if you use other resources. I want to get mad, but I recommend my YouTube channel. I have a Python programming series from scratch all the way to completion, just on Python programming, all the basics that you need. you can start with that one. It's very beginner friendly. A lot of you have done this course, or at least other people who haven't joined here. A lot of people have done the course. They have gotten some good feedback from it. So I'd recommend you start from that one. There's a JavaScript programming series as well. It is pretty hanging. I haven't posted videos in about like 2 weeks or something, but you can also go ahead and start with that as you wait for me to upload other things. But again, pick one, right? Pick one and stick with it to the end first before you pick another programming language. The reason for this is because once you've understood one single programming language end to end, it's pretty easy for you to get into any other programming language. Like for example, in my case, the one language that I picked and ran with it to the end was Python. I made sure that I understand everything to do with Python end to end. That to the point that if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I'll still write a perfect Python program for you, right? So once you've picked that, you'll notice that the same patterns apply across all the languages. If you get to a point where you need to learn another programming language, it's pretty easy if you already understand one language end to end and how it works under the hood. Remember, all these things you're doing, you're communicating to your computer, right? You're telling a computer what to do. And that is what every programming language does. The only thing that changes within this programming language is the syntax. Think of the syntax as, you see, when you speak English or when you're writing English, there's these rules that if you start with a sentence, you have to start with a capital letter. There has to be a full stop to show you that this is the end of a sentence. You have to have an exclamation mark somewhere, all those things. That is what we refer to as syntax. So in programming, we also have the same sort of syntax, that you have to put a comma somewhere, you have to put curly braces somewhere, all those things. So each programming language has its own syntax, but they all do the same thing. Same thing with the languages. The main aim of a language is to communicate information. So you're able to do that. So anyway, I recommend my YouTube channel for you to just go and quickly get started on programming, understand what you're going to get yourself into. Then the major thing now, once you've done that, is practicing. Most people do not find, not really, I wouldn't call it success, but most people do not get the most out of the programming languages, and they do not get the best understanding of it because they don't practice enough. You have to practice. That is sort of the baseline of all this. You always have to practice. From the moment you start writing print hello world or console.log hello world, the moment you write your first program, everything else after that is practice. There's understanding the syntax, but you need to practice it with project, right? So you're learning by doing something. Build a project, like I mentioned, build a simple program for to help you manage your finances, right? To help you do calculations on your budget, to help you understand what is happening around you, build a news application once you've understood enough of what you're doing. But you need to do that. A resource that I recommend for practicing, especially for like the simple things that we're doing with the web and everything, is FreeCodeCamp. There are many other resources you can use, but FreeCodeCamp has some really nicely designed interactive exercises that you can do. If you want to, for example, test yourself on your understanding of HTML and CSS, FreeCodeCamp has all that covered. It has so many questions and exercises that you can be able to read. So take advantage of that. Then even on JavaScript, but it has really good exercises. So what I recommend is go learn the programming language, right? Go to my YouTube, go to any other resources that you find good for you. Learn the language, understand it. Then after that, go to Free Code Camp to help you practice the exercises. Then there are a few other things. There are a few other things that you can do on top of that. But for example, usage of AI, right? Let me just try to. I'm not sure that I have where I have that in the slide. But before we talk about documentation, let's talk about using of AI tools. So one thing you have to avoid, and this is something I always tell all my students, if I find you using AI to give you the direct answers, then submit the answers from AI as your own answers, then I'll just drop you, or we're going to have a very difficult conversation because we don't want to be lying to each other that we understand something when we don't. So whenever you're doing the programming that you're doing, whenever you're learning, there's always that temptation. Again, I do understand this. It is the same thing as, when you are in like primary school, high school, then you're using these revision books. You see the questions there. You know in your mind very well that At the back of this book, all the answers are there for the questions that I'm doing. So you go back to the answers, you copy down the answers as you are on, then you submit, right? You're just lying to yourself, of course. It is the same thing with what people are doing with AI. You're given an exercise. For example, you're told, write a simple program that is going to tell you the Fibonacci numbers on a specific, like they'll show you the Fibonacci sequence, that kind of thing. Or write a program that is going to help you calculate and understand your finances and how you spend your money on a monthly basis. Then you go ahead and punch that into AI. You tell it, write the program for me, then you submit it as your own. You're just hindering your learning process. You're just lying to yourself, of course. The best way to use AI, and I've talked about this on the Chat GPT has the study and learn feature. You can be able to use that. What you do is you need to break down because at this point you can't avoid using AI, but you need to use it in a very skillful way, in a way that is going to help you accelerate your learning process. Use it to help you clarify, understand concepts. For example, if you're building a project in the finance project you've talked about, right? Then you don't understand how to get your financial data, your finance data from, let's say, M-Pesa, right? So, for example, in the M-Pesa API, all that, or you just want you have your M-Pesa statement, then you want to understand how you can be able to get the data from your M-Pesa statement, then punch it into something else for you to do your analysis. Ask the program, right? How do I interact with the M-Pesa API, right? Or go and check. DevRees has these nice videos on how to work with the M-Pesa API. But if you're using AI, ask it, or rather, how do I work with the M-Pesa API? How do I scrape data from a website that has my data, or how do I get my data from an Excel sheet that I've been using to track my finances? Once you do that, it is teaching you how to. It's not You're not telling it, write me the program that is going to go to my Excel sheet, then get me the information. Right? You'll be cheating if you're doing that. But ask it how you can do it, and then learn from that and start doing it yourself. Right? There's all these questions you can ask it. For example, you want to figure out whether you've understood how functions work in programming. You'll go to the AI, tell it, you need, of course, to learn how to write prompts better, but tell it something as simple as, I've been learning Python. I've been learning about functions in Python, and I want to gauge my understanding on this. I want you to quiz me on, let's say, the Python syntax, and give me some projects that I can try to build to understand my Python skill, or rather my understanding of the functions in Python. You see, in that way, it is going to help you. It will ask you questions, you will answer them, and the good thing about it, you can of course tell it, give me feedback on what I need to improve on in my answer. It will do exactly that for you. But if you're going to go ahead and ask it, yo, right, give me a program that is going to do this, and then I don't know, we can't even be friends. But anyway, I hope you'll understand that. Use it interactively. If you have an error, a mistake that most people do is they'll copy the error, they'll paste it, and then tell it, solve this error for me. Don't do that. Check the error, paste it in the AI chat GPT, or there are all these many AI tools that exist nowadays, Gemini, Meta, all that. Paste the error, tell it, help me understand what this error is. Tell me, or rather tell me what are some of the possible scenarios in my program that might have prompted this error to occur. Right? Then after you've done that, then start breaking everything down on how to solve the error, how to do that. Don't tell it to solve it for you outright or explicitly. Guys, mmenyamaza sana. Just give me a thumbs up. I want to make sure that we are all for following here. Awesome, awesome. So we make sure that we always do that. Use AI interactively. Use it to give you learning plans, right? The other major thing I love about AI is use AI to generate the learning paths that you want, right? For example, you're learning how to, let me use the example of functions, right? For those who haven't done programming yet, just to help you understand what a function is, think of it as the main thing, the way you are interacting with, let's see, just your normal, let me use the human body, right? Right now, I'm speaking, right? There are a few functions that I can see. There's the function of my mouth is a function, or my tongue rather is a function that allows me to speak, right? My gestures, that is a function of my hand, all that. So in programming, we also have the same. So a function is a block of code that you write that tells a program a specific thing to do, right? For example, I want to count my fingers, one, two, three, doing that, right? In programming, this is a function. You write a function that specifically does such the same thing. Anyway, so when you're using AI to learn functions, you'll tell it, starting to learn functions in about functions in JavaScript, right? Then I want you to give me a learning path, like a learning path on everything that I need to learn about functions that is going to help me understand them better, how they work under the hood, how I can write better functions to optimize and modularize my code even better. Then tell it to generate questions for you on what you can be able to build. That is a good way to use AI. It will give you all the learning paths, give you all the questions, give you everything. So use AI to accelerate your learning. Right? Use the AI tools really well. Don't copy and paste things as if, you just don't want to lie to yourself. There's this study that was done by, was it MIT? Some organization did this study about how our brains look like if you compare a brain of someone who has been using AI in this case, like for example, ChatGPT so much, to comparing that to a person who has not been using, there's a difference in their brain scans. Someone who has been using AI and they're not using it well, you'll find that it looks like there's a gap. There's always a knowledge gap and a skill gap somewhere in that person. In terms of even like logical thinking and all that. But someone who has not been using, they still have their normal motor functions and all that, because they haven't outsourced everything. Do not outsource. The point here is, do not outsource your thinking to an AI model. Use it to improve your thinking. I feel like you guys should quote me on that. But yeah, use AI to help you in improving and optimizing your thinking. Not Do not outsource your thinking and your logical reasoning to that. Do not use the AI to tell you how to treat people and all that. Okay, it can help in a better way, but you guys get my point. So these are some of the things you need to understand about all this. And now, how do you set up yourself for success in programming? There's so many things you can do in this case, right? You need to understand that learning code is not about just the syntax that you're writing, but it's about you building habits and finding the right people for you, the right community for you. These are the things that are going to keep you going whenever you get stuck at any point. Find a community. In like our community, we have the Discord community. If you haven't joined the Discord community, please do join the Discord community. You're going to find your people there. There are people who are learning. Make sure you interact with people. Sometimes people just are shy of starting a conversation, but start a conversation with someone. Ask them about what they're learning. But that is one thing you need to do. If you want to learn code, you need to build the habits and find your people who are going to help in the learning processes. A good story I always use is how I started learning programming. When I started, I didn't know anything about programming as much when I joined uni, but when I got there, I was just doing things on my own, just things from class. Then I went to the library. I'm not going to go into the full story, but I went to the library. I used to see this group of people who are on their computers in a library, the library in JKUAT, for those of you who have been there. And I really wanted to know, what are these people doing? So I went ahead and I just struck a conversation with one of them. What are you guys doing? I want to also know. They told me we're doing programming. You can be coming to join us. And they were very welcoming. I started writing code with them, and I'll attribute the success, the small level, or however you look at it, success I've achieved in programming and coding in general, to starting that conversation with that group of people. They are still my good friends up to this date, right? They are some of the leading guys in tech that you guys know of, who are like famous tech bros and all that. Those guys introduced me to a community that I would not have known it existed if I didn't start the conversation. So make sure that you just keep that. Getting people who are good to help you is a good way for you to move ahead. The other thing is to start small and iterate on what you're doing. I always talk about iteration. Do not try to build, of course try if you can, but don't sort of try to build like the next Facebook on the first day of you starting to learn programming. You need to focus on the tiny daily challenges that are going to get you there. If you need to learn about how to store data today, do that. If you want to learn about data structures, do that today. Focus on that. As you compound all this knowledge, then you're going to get to a point whereby you can build your Facebook if that is what you want to do, right? Then there are all these other tools you're going to learn along the way. If you want to just stay up to date on the tools you need to learn and all that, just check my TikTok. I post there almost every day on things. I've posted a lot of things before, but I always try my best to make sure that I give you the information on the major things that you need to be learning and to be aware of on a day-to-day basis as you're learning programming. Always ask for help. Feel free to send me a message. I'll be able to help you. If I have never replied to your message, it's probably because it wasn't. It was just a hi, and that was it. I'd like to, if you have an issue that you'd like me to help you with and help understand and solve as well, send me a message. Describe the issue. I recommend sending all these things to the Discord community server. I'll be able to get back to you as soon as I can. But always ask for help. Go ahead and ask someone else that you know within the group. Let them understand what you're doing. Some people are asking, what is my YouTube channel? Please check the links that are available on TikTok and all that. They're able to get you there. So that's how you get the best. There's a lot that you can do for you to get the best in programming, but I'd say for now, what I've mentioned should be able to get you started pretty quickly. The major thing I always talk about: documenting your learning process. I can't stress this enough. I've been able to get I've been able to get so many people, so many connections, and I've been able to get even job opportunities as a result of me documenting my learning journey. When I started learning programming, I started taking notes. At the time, I had no idea that I wanted to share my knowledge and information that I have with the world, but I could just take notes on what I've learned on Python, what I've learned on JavaScript. Then later on, I started writing about that on my blogs and sharing that to people. And people started reaching out saying, "Hi, I want to like talk to you about what you're doing. You'll probably be an asset to our company." And I was able to get some jobs as a result of that. But just aside of that is sort of the long term thing. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to do it for like 6-12 months without even expecting anyone to reach out. But the other main thing that it helps you with is it helps you connect with the people who are also learning. You'll find that if you go on TikTok, if you go on YouTube, most of these places, people who are documenting themselves learning something usually build a really big community of people who are learning the same thing. Then they learn together. You're going to find your person at that point in that place, right? So make sure you document your learning process in that way. Apart from just the long term goal of it giving you the visibility. Visibility is what you're going to get, so that you can build a really cool project. Then someone will reach out to you. They tell you you've built a cool project, and we think that as a result of this, come interview with our company. We might have something for you, right? There's all these things, all these opportunities that come as a result of you documenting and sharing what you're doing. It's more than what a lot of people would talk about. If you're not comfortable putting your face in front of the camera, you don't always have to do that. You can just write. You can open a blog on Substack, a newsletter blog on Substack. You can open a blog on dev.to. There's Hashnode. There are all these places that you can use online. Then you can just be writing, and people are still going to find your content. So always make sure that you document your learning journey. This is the simple framework on how you document what you're doing. Let's say you start learning programming today. Today's on a Sunday. Just you start learning programming today, right? You can be documenting every day, saying I did this today. These are the challenges and all that. But you can be doing it at the end of the week. But the simple framework is uh, talk about what you have learned, talk about the challenges you face while learning that, and how did you go about solving those challenges. Did you solve the challenge or not? If you didn't solve the challenge, say it. Someone will help you, but at least you'll have something to refer to later on and confirm whether you understood that thing. Then share the resources that you've been using. That is something that's going to help you like really really well. So make sure that you follow this simple framework to document your process. Okay, there's a question here. I think for someone going into tech, does the university matter? Uh, not really. Not really. This is what I recommend for someone who is if there's someone here who is about to join university to learn programming and tech in general. I'm not going to vouch for a specific university, but what I recommend is go to a place where you're going to meet people. Go to a place where you're going to meet people who are going to be a big influence on you in programming, right? So again, I'm not throwing shade or talking ill about any place, but I want you to imagine going to a university somewhere in, you guys can say a place. Let me say somewhere remote, just so that I don't single out a specific place. Let's go, you go to a university that is somewhere remote where there's no sort of like there's no tech ecosystem around it and people you can interact with. Then your chances of you getting involved with these people are very minimal unless you're very active online. But if you want a physical community to interact with, then look for a place that is a bit more urban, that has a community built around it, that is going to help you meet the people, attend the events, and all those things. Right? Okay. I feel like our time is running out. Let me see if there's any other thing that I need to talk about. I've talked about community. You can get a community online. Our Discord is a good place to get started in. Attend meetups. Any chance that you get, attend a meetup. It can be a meetup within your school, within the town that you're living in. I believe most people here in Nairobi, but whichever town you're in, if there's a tech meetup, make sure that you attend that meetup. Any study groups that are going to find, it can be one or two people. Make sure you join that. That is how you're able to build a community. Your community is going to get you a job one day, or your community is going to give you an opportunity that you did not expect is going to happen. Right. So this is why it is important for you to make sure that you always join a community if you haven't already. Super, super important. Do you guys have any questions? I like to talk. We can stay here for the next 2 3 hours and I'll still be talking. So I'm going to pause here for a moment if you have any questions that you want to ask or comments you want to make. Any burning question you've been having, please do ask. I applied a Python course on CS50, but I never know how to navigate to read. Do you mind sharing that? You're talking about, I believe you're talking about the CS50 platform, right? I'm not sure how I can be able to help with that really, because it's kind of straightforward in a way. But I'll see if I once I get an, what is the word? Once I get uh oh God, my brain just froze. Once I get some time, I'll try and make a video, but you'll probably need to remind me on that, on how you can use navigate through the CS50 website if you're learning something. So do that. Let me see. Are you going to have this online meetings on a regular basis? I'll try. I'll try as much as I can. I'll try as much as I can to have this session set up. So just watch out. Watch out. I usually share all these things on TikTok and on Discord. Just join the communities. I'll always share this. We can, once we get enough. Let's say if enough people are interested, this is something that we can be doing on a weekly basis. So talking about different topics, and I think I'll mostly focus on how to do things, not those things. For example, I want to be showing you that this is how you write a function, this is how you do this. You can find all that information on my blog or on my YouTube. We'll be talking about mainly how to do things, right? So, for example, what are the best resources you can be able to learn? So, all these other things that you usually don't get if you are going to learn some things online. But once, if there's enough interest on these things, this is something that we can be doing on a weekly basis. How long does it take one to master React? I don't know whether I'll say a lifetime. The thing about, I think the term mastery is sometimes not used in the correct way. Anything that you're learning, you need to you need to know that it's incremental, the learning process. I don't know if there's a point where you can call yourself a pro in a specific thing, because there's always a new challenge. If you find yourself to that point, then there's probably an issue with your progression or something like that. But how you can be able to measure understanding is through building projects. So the more projects you build, the more you understand, for example, how React works and how you can use it further. So I'd say it depends on how many projects that you do and how long you're going to do it. It's just about the amount of time you spend on learning these things. What is the meaning of object-oriented programming in object-oriented programming? Again, I have a video on object oriented on my YouTube. Go check that out. But we look at, it's basically think of the idea of objects, right? So, how to look at an object is, for example, a person is an object, right? And basically, a person has properties to them. So, an object would have properties like, for a person, basically, a person has properties like, let's say, they have a person has a name, a person has habits and hobbies they can be able to do, a person has different functions, they can talk, they can do this, they can do that. So you need to think of that is like an object. Think of a car, it's an object, it has different functionalities and different properties and values to it. So now doing that in programming, so object-oriented programming is treating the things you're working with as objects, right? So if you are going to deal with, let's say you want to do something like what you're getting people's information on something, then you can build, or rather you can treat aspects of that as objects. That is a simple way I can be able to use it. If you want the textbook definition, just Google it out. Any community you might recommend. um, yeah, I don't want to give you the first answer that I have, but check our Discord server. That is the first the community I'd recommend at the moment. But there's the more mainstream communities that I'd recommend. For example, we have what is the word? What is the name? We have a community like Google. There's the Google Developer Student Clubs. There's that. We have Microsoft Learn. Uh, is it called Microsoft Learn Community? Something like that. You can join that. There's what is the other community I can think of? There are so many programming communities you're going to find available. But if you're like in a university, I recommend you join the Google Developers Club or Google Students Club, Developer Students Club. That is going to, it's a community where you find a lot of people who are also learning programming. But there are so many of those communities. If you want something to get started with, just join our Discord and talk to people.